dear children, I welcome you to the radio learning program. This is Teacher Mary. I'll be teaching you social studies for P4. And I appreciate our dear parents for supporting our children as they are learning through this program. Thank you so much, our parents. We appreciate you. So children, do you have your notebooks and pens ready for today's lesson? Okay, you will need the notebooks and pens because you'll be writing down exercises and activities I'll be giving you. So I hope, children, you're ready. Okay, can we do a recap of what we learned in the last lesson? So do you still remember what we learned in the last lesson? Can you share with the person next to you? Okay, thank you. Well done. So this is what we learned. We learned about important places and public assets. And we said an important place is a place you should respect, preserve, and protect because it has value. And we said some of the important places are the museum, genocide memorial sites, game parks, national parks, and the public gardens. And also a public asset is something that belongs to all people. That means it belongs to all the people. We have examples of a public assets like water sources, marketplaces, schools, police station, hospital, and so many others. So that is what we learned in the last lesson. Let us have a short break, then we continue.
Come along and play with us.
Welcome back. So today, we are going to learn about weather. We are going to learn about weather. So you can find this topic on page 70, 71, 72 in the P4 SST textbook. So this topic can be found on page 70, 71, and 72 in the P4 SST textbook. So these are our learning objectives. This is what you will be able to achieve at the end of this lesson. You will be able to define weather. You will also be able to state the main elements of weather. You will also be able to list the instruments used to measure the elements of weather. And you will suggest ways of preventing effects of bad weather. That is what you will be able to learn at the end of this lesson. So, let's begin by defining weather. We need to understand what weather is. So what is weather? Can you share with the person next to you? Well done. So weather is the state of the atmosphere for a short period of time. Weather is the state of the atmosphere for a short period of time. For example, the weather can be hot or cold. It can be wet or dry. It can be calm or stormy. Or it can be clear or cloudy. So in other words, the weather, it is how the atmosphere is. And the atmosphere can change anytime. You can wake up in the morning, it is hot. You know the atmosphere is hot and it is all hot. But later in the evening, it changes. It becomes cold. So it is for a short period of time. Weather is always for a short period of time. And that is the state of the atmosphere, how the atmosphere is for a very short period of time. So weather can change at any time. It can be hot now, later it is cold. It can shine in the morning and later it becomes cloudy. Yeah, so weather, it is always for a short period of time. And then we can measure weather at a given time in a place. So weather needs to be measured. We can do this to know more about the weather and also to handle it accordingly. So we need to know when it is going to be rainy. If it's going to be rainy in the morning, you will be able to prepare yourself. If you're a farmer, you'll be able to go in the garden and dig very early so that your crops are watered by rain. And if you're going to work, if you know that it's going to rain, you will be able to carry an umbrella, for instance. You will be able to put on good clothes whereby you will not get cold because you have already predicted the weather. So we also need to always know the weather and be able to handle it accordingly. So now this brings me to this question. What are the elements of weather? What are those elements of weather? We said weather is that state of the atmosphere for a short period of time. So what are the elements of weather? Because weather changes at any time, and weather has different kinds of elements. So we need to know those elements of weather. In other words, the parts of weather. So what do you understand by the elements of weather? Do you know those elements of weather? Can you share with the person next to you? Well done. So let me share with you the elements of weather. We need to know that the elements of weather are the different parts or elements of weather. So these are the elements of weather. Temperature. And the temperature always shows the hotness or coldness of a place. So when we talk about hotness or coldness of a place, that is what we call temperature. So if a place is cold or hot, we can say the temperature of the place is cold, or the temperature of a place is hot. And we always measure the temperature in degrees. So wind is the movement of air from a place of higher pressure to an area of low pressure. So I know, children, you all know about wind. You have felt wind at one time. Okay, the third element of weather is rainfall. Rainfall is the water that falls from the atmosphere to the surface of the earth. I think you all know rainfall. Then air pressure. Air pressure is the fourth element of weather. Air pressure is the heaviness put on something by the weight of the air. It is the heaviness put on something by the weight of the air. So it is the feeling of the air. That is what we call air pressure. So it is about the weight of air on something or on someone. So the clouds are the collection of water or ice in the air that move in the sky. So you need to know that clouds are always in form of water or ice, and they're always moving in the sky, And sometimes the clouds cover the sun. So sometimes the clouds cover the sun. If there are too many, they cover the sun and we are not able to see the sun. So clouds are also an element of weather. Sunshine. You all know the sunshine, So the sun or sunshine is the light or heat that comes from the sun. Sunshine is the light and heat that comes from the sun. Now, the last element of weather, we have humidity. Can you say that? Humidity. So humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. So I can go through all the elements of weather. We said the temperature, we talked about wind, we have rainfall, air pressure, the clouds, sunshine, and humidity. So those are elements of weather. And there are so many other elements of weather that we are not able to mention. This is what I was able to share with you. And you can also do research and find out the other elements of weather. So, children, can you stand up for a warm-up? Let us do a very interesting warm-up. So let us go. If you hear me, clap once. If you hear me, clap twice. If you hear me, clap thrice. If you hear me, clap 4 times. Let's do it again. If you're hearing me, clap once. If you hear me, clap twice. If you hear me, clap thrice. If you hear me, clap 4 times. Very good. You can sit down. So, from above, we are looking at the elements of weather. And now, we are going to look at the instruments used to measure the elements of weather. The instruments we use to measure the elements of weather. Which instruments do we use to measure the temperature, the rainfall, sunshine, humidity? What are the instruments that we use? The air pressure. What do we use to measure the air pressure? And we say the air pressure is the heaviness put on something by the weight of the air. So we use a barometer. We use a barometer to measure air pressure. Rain, we use a rain gauge. Rain gauge, it is used to measure rainfall. Are you there with me? Are you following? So we've said the barometer is used to measure the air pressure. The rain gauge is used to measure rain. Then what about the thermometer? What do we use a thermometer for? So we use a thermometer to measure the hotness or coldness. We use a thermometer to measure hotness or coldness, and that is temperature. What about the wind vane? The wind vane is always used to measure the direction of wind. So the wind vane is used to measure the direction of wind. Sunshine recorder. I think you can guess that. A sunshine recorder. A sunshine recorder is used to record the amount of sunshine. What about humidity? What do we use to measure humidity? What about humidity? We use hydrometer to measure humidity. So let's have a short break.
Come along and play with us.
Welcome back. So we are looking at the instruments we use to measure weather. We talked about the hydrometer, the rain gauge, thermometer, wind vane, sunshine recorder, and hydrometer. So those are the instruments we can use to measure weather. We also looked at the elements of weather that the instruments are able to measure. So let us look at the effects of weather on human activities and vegetation. What are the elements of weather on human activities and vegetation? And we have the positive effects and the negative effects. So what are the positive effects? How does weather affect human activities positively? So this is how weather affects human activities positively. Weather has an effect on what we do, It also has an effect on plants and animals. So it can enable plants to grow, and animals can be able to feed on the plants that have grown. Because most of the plants, they are a source of food for the animals, also a source of food for people. So whenever it rains and the crops are watered, they are grown, people are able to harvest and have food, and the animals are able also to feed on the crops that have grown. So it will be able to benefit everyone because the plants, they are grown and they're able to feed people and also the animals. So appropriate weather condition supports farming and agriculture. So what about sunshine? What do people use sunshine for? Sunshine helps people to dry clothes. And also people can dry their crops, after harvest. They can spread their crops, so that the sun can dry them very well. And also lastly, weather helps to ripen crops for harvest. There are some crops which have to be ripened in the garden. For example, fruits like a mango, avocados, all those crops need to be ripened on the tree so that people are able to harvest them. And also maize. There are people who have to harvest maize when it is dry. So the sun will help to dry the crops in the garden and people will be able to harvest them when they are ready. So we have looked at the positive effects of weather on human activities. Now what about the negative effects? What are the negative effects? As much as weather may have positive effects, it will also have negative effects. So if we don't get enough rainfall, we can have drought in an area. And also, if we have a lot of rainfall, if it rains heavily in a place, there will be flooding because of too much rainfall. So if it rains a lot in the rainy season, we can have floods, and the floods can destroy houses and property, which leads to poverty. People can get poor because of the destruction of their property. So heavy rain can lead to floods in an area, and which leads to destruction of property. And there are so many examples of how rain has destroyed places. I think, children, you have heard of the floods that have taken place in Musanze, Nyabihu, and Rubavu. And you know the flooding came about by rain because it was too much rain. It destroyed the water sources. The rain which took place there destroyed houses. It destroyed every kind of building. And you know that is the bad effect of weather. So we need to always know how to handle and overcome the bad effects of weather on human activities and on also the environment. So that is what we are going to look at next. How can we overcome the effects of weather? How can we overcome the effects of weather? You have heard of people who have had loss of property because of flooding, because of heavy rainfall. But we all need to know how to overcome the effects of weather. Yeah. So what are those things we can do to overcome or deal with bad weather? Okay, can you write them in your notebooks? Okay, this is how we can be able to overcome the effects of weather. We can overcome bad weather by growing different crops at the same time. Some of the crops must be crops that do not need a lot of water. So in case of drought, the crops will still grow. So we can plant crops which are drought resistant, like cassava and millet. They don't need a lot of rain. So in case of too much sunshine, the crops will still grow. So we can also protect the trees in the forests. We need to prevent, cutting down of trees. We need to always protect the trees. Let the trees grow in the forest. And it is easy to prevent mudslides and flooding if we have the trees which are grown. We can plant crops in such a way that they prevent soil erosion. That is, we need to plant them on terraces. We can plant our crops so as to prevent soil erosion. We can do this by planting them on terraces. We should also not build our houses next to rivers and lakes or swamps. We should put our houses in good places because near the rivers or the lakes, the weather can change anytime and the houses can be destroyed because of too much rain, because of too much water. So we need to always build our houses in good places. So lastly, we can store water which we can use for irrigation. Let us be able to store water which we can use for irrigation in case of too much sunshine and we are not able to receive rain. So we can use that water for irrigation. So we have looked at the effects of bad weather and also how to overcome the effects of weather. So now,
Come along and play with us.
welcome back. So we are going to conclude the lesson. And let us summarize everything that we learned in the lesson. We have learned about the definition of weather, which is the state of the atmosphere for a short period of time. We said weather can be hot or cold. It can be wet, dry. It can also be cloudy or not cloudy. So the elements of weather can also be measured. And we looked at the different instruments we use to measure the elements of weather. We learned about the effects of weather on human activities and also how to overcome those effects of weather on human activities. So now for your homework, you will research about the meaning of flora and fauna. Flora and fauna. So flora is F-L-O-R-A. And also fauna is F-A-U-N-A. So research about them and find out the meaning of both of them. So children, thank you so much for paying attention. And also parents, thank you for supporting our children as they are learning through this program. I hope you join me in the next lesson. Bye-bye.